Monday.com AI agents took over my work, and I absolutely love it. Chasing deadlines, writing status reports, updating stakeholders. Agents handle the daily grind now. I stay in the loop only when it matters. Create your own AI agent in minutes on Monday.com.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In 1925, a British explorer named Percy Fawcett walked into the Amazon rainforest with his son and a family friend. He was looking for a lost city he called Z. He was never seen again. No body was ever found. No camp, no equipment, no trace. 3 men walked into the Mato Grosso, the vast unmapped interior of western Brazil, and the jungle simply swallowed them whole. They were not the first, and they would not be the last. Our History Brief today presents an excerpt from this Friday's Conversation Series episode and a conversation with best-selling author and historian Sarah Pearsall, where we speak about her latest book, Freedom Round the Globe, where she reframes the American Revolution as a global crisis. The entire video interview is already available to our Patreon subscribers and will be released on our YouTube channel this Friday, along with the regular podcast feed release wherever you're listening to this show. A quick word from our sponsors.
This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. The agents wrote the copy and managed the timelines, while our human creative director made sure it all made sense. Easy. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
This day in history. On July 1st, 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg began in Pennsylvania. Over the next 3 days, the clash would become the bloodiest battle ever fought on American soil and a turning point in the Civil War. On July 1st, 1997, Hong Kong was officially transferred from British to Chinese sovereignty after more than 150 years of British rule. The handover marked one of the most significant geopolitical transitions of the late 20th century. Story of the day. The Mato Grosso, the name is Portuguese for thick forest, by the way, is one of the great understatements in the history of cartography. In the early 20th century, the Mato Grosso and the broader Amazon basin represented something that was becoming increasingly rare on a rapidly modernizing planet. A blank. Not a metaphorical blank, no, a literal one. On the maps that European and American geographers used, vast stretches of western Brazil were simply unmarked. Unknown river systems, unmeasured plateaus, entire ecosystems that no Western scientist had ever documented. The man who went looking for those blanks called it exploration. The jungle had other names for that. The race to map the Amazon in the 1920s was driven by 3 things that rarely travel well together: science, nationalism, and obsession. The science was real. The Royal Geographical Society in London was funding expeditions into South America in the same spirit that it funded expeditions to the poles. The systematic accumulation of geographic and biological knowledge that the British Empire had been pursuing for 2 centuries. The nationalism was real too. Brazil in the early 20th century was a young republic, trying to understand and assert sovereignty over a territory so vast that significant portions of it had never been surveyed. The Brazilian government established the Indian Protection Service, later revealed to be catastrophically corrupt, but founded on the genuine recognition that indigenous peoples in the interior existed and deserved some form of acknowledgement. And then there was the obsession. Percy Fawcett was a British Army officer, a surveyor, and a man of his era in the best and worst senses of that phrase. He was disciplined, brilliant, and physically formidable, capable of enduring conditions that broke other men. He was also convinced, with the unshakable certainty of someone who has confused intuition with evidence, that the Amazon interior contained the ruins of an ancient, advanced civilization. He called it Z. He had spent years in the Amazon on surveying expeditions for the Royal Geographical Society, mapping border regions between Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru. He had seen things: ancient pottery, unexplained earthworks, indigenous accounts of cities in the interior that had calcified in his mind into proof of something extraordinary. The academic establishment, however, was skeptical. Fawcett was not the kind of man who was deterred by skepticism. In April of 1925, he set out from Cuyaba, the capital of Mato Grosso state, with his son Jack and Jack's friend, Raleigh Rimmel. His last communication, sent in late May, described a camp at a place he called Dead Horse Camp on the Xingu River. After that, nothing. The disappearance of Percy Fawcett became one of the great mysteries of the 20th century. Over the following decades, more than 100 people died searching for him. Expeditions mounted by newspapers, by the Royal Geographical Society, by adventurers and opportunists and true believers. All of them went into the Mato Grosso looking for Fawcett, or for Z, or for both. Most came back diminished. Some did not come back at all. The jungle was not selective about who it took. The Mato Grosso in the 1920s was a place of genuine, not metaphorical extremity. The heat was ferocious. The insects were relentless. Clouds of them, day and night, carrying malaria and other diseases that had no names in European medicine. The rivers flooded unpredictably, destroying camps and equipment. The vegetation was so dense that a party of men could move a mile in a day and consider that progress. And beneath all of it, watching, largely invisible and entirely misunderstood by the Europeans who stumbled through their territory, were the indigenous peoples of the interior. Dozens of groups, hundreds of years of knowledge about how to survive in a place that was actively trying to kill you. The explorers, almost universally, either ignored them or feared them. The ones who built relationships with them tended to survive a little longer. What the 1920s expeditions did find, when they found anything at all, was quite staggering. New river systems, unknown species, evidence of earthworks and settlements that suggested the Amazon interior had supported large, complex populations long before European contact. A Brazilian officer named Candido Rondon, one of the genuinely remarkable figures of the era, spent decades mapping the interior and insisting, against the prevailing current of his time, that indigenous peoples were not obstacles to be removed, but civilizations to be understood. Rondon gave his name to the Brazilian state of Rondônia. He is still considered a national hero. But Rondon's approach was the exception. The dominant model was extraction of knowledge, of resources, of geographic data, with very little consideration for what was already there. The Mato Grosso was never truly unmapped. The people who lived there had mapped it in the only way that actually matters: in the accumulated knowledge of generations, in the names that gave the rivers and seasons and plants, in the routes they walked, and the places that they understood. What the explorers of the 1920s were really doing was not discovering a wilderness. They were imposing a new set of names onto a world that had already had them. Some of them understood this, but most of them did not. Percy Fawcett almost certainly did not. Somewhere in the Mato Grosso, in a place the jungle has long since reclaimed, are the bones of a man who was brilliant, driven, and absolutely certain that he knew what he was looking for. The jungle was not interested in his certainty. It never is. The obsession cost him everything. The wilderness asked no questions and gave no answers. And the blank on a map, the one that sent so many men to their deaths, was never really blank at all. The History Brief. The following is an excerpt from this Friday's Conversation Series episode and a conversation with best-selling author and historian Sarah Pearsall, where we speak about her latest book, Freedom Around the Globe, where she reframes the American Revolution as a global crisis. As a reminder, the entire video interview is already available to our Patreon subscribers and will be released on our YouTube channel this Friday, along with the regular podcast feed wherever you're listening to this show.
The EIC had a surplus of Chinese tea that they wanted to sell. And so the Tea Act was partly to help them be able to sell it for lower tariffs to American consumers. But because Americans were aware, they're very nervous about the EIC. And they actually say explicitly, which I hadn't expected to find, that they see what the EIC has done in Asia and they worry that it's about to do the same in America. And people like John Dickinson, who's much more famous for Letters from a Pennsylvania Farmer, which he writes in the late 1760s, writes also 2 letters on the tea tax where he really argues that this is the EIC's kind of evil plan is to take over America and to treat Americans the way they had treated Asians. And this sense that the EIC is to be rejected, that it's sort of this corrupt monopoly is really one of the drivers of what becomes known as the Tea Party. So those connections are very clear, and there's plenty of evidence for them.
Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. I also hope you guys check out our YouTube channel, where we have videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.